Hello everyone, I'm Ben Stemrick, and this is the follow-up question. This week's Allentown City Council meeting didn't have too much going on. The big news came in a budget and finance meeting when City Council members decided to move forward with the IronPigs minor league baseball team and the Vinci Science Center's new downtown Allentown facilities center's request to consider their projects for American Rescue Plan funding without going through the original agreed upon process. Allentown was awarded $57 million in ARPA funding and have roughly $25 million left. This does not mean those funds have been awarded, just that they will be voted on by the entire council and not just the budget committee. The IronPigs were approved for the total $1.5 million in funding that they requested. However, the Science Center was only approved for $1 million. They were also asking for $1.5 million. Now, recently, the county agreed to give an additional $3 million in funding for the IronPigs Coca-Cola Park upgrades, but that wasn't enough to sway the members of the Budget and Finance Committee to go with a lesser dollar amount than the IronPigs originally asked for. Now, whatever you think about the IronPigs, if they deserve this money or not, that's not what's being decided here. This is about following a process instituted by council to ensure the funding be used fair and it being disregarded by some of the same members who decided that should be the process. The reason being, the projects are shovel-ready and face the cost of inflation insinuates there won't be other projects that face the same or other issues caused by having to wait. We had a chance to talk with councilmember Ed Zucal, who has been adamant about making the IronPigs and Vinci Center follow the same process, and we asked him about those funds. Here, take a look. The other night at committee, the decision on the IronPigs was made to go forward in the process with the $1.5 million in ARPA funding and $1 million in the Vinci Center. Why don't you just kind of start by telling me what happened there and what does this mean exactly? Does this mean that the money has been granted?
No, the money hasn't been granted. Well, that was a budget and finance meeting, which it was held to discuss that. On the 19th of October, there'll be an official vote by council.
In the few times that this has come to a vote in one facet or another at the meetings, you have been one of the dissenting three votes. The reasoning for that being not following the process that was originally agreed upon.
That's correct. There was supposed to be an application process for not just them, but for everybody, which was not carried through. The other issue is that I have with that is that if you remember in the beginning, it was to make improvements to the stadium because of Major League Baseball. However, the last meeting that Mr. Finley was at, it's now changed to they've lost revenue during COVID, which they may have. However, they are a business. COVID money was intended for nonprofits, revitalizing the city for money they lost and for capital improvements.
What do you think it says to the residents that this is going forward and kind of bypassing that process?
Well, first of all, I think it's extremely disrespectful to the taxpayers. Number one, I find it very disheartening that my colleagues don't follow the rules that they make, their own rules that they make. The other thing is, maybe not this year because of ARPA, we don't have to do our tax rates. However, if we don't use that money wisely that we have for capital improvements, such as the new firehouse, the parks, the pools, the streets, at some point in time, it's got to be fixed, and there will be a tax increase.
Have you made any decisions on what you feel should be prioritized with this funding?
Oh, absolutely. The pools, the big debate there was over the summer because there weren't enough pools for people to go to on the hottest days of the year. Mm-hmm. The parks, we're not using our parks wisely. The streets are a mess. Central Fire Station is basically on its last leg that needs to be completely really demolished and rebuilt. And at some point in time, as I said, if we don't use that money now, we're going to unfortunately have to get it from the taxpayers later, which I think is a shame.
It kind of feels like this IronPig situation has kind of hijacked the whole, idea and intention of what this money is really supposed to be about and going towards. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 150%. Now, also, Vinci is coming and asking for money. I'm a little inclined, although I will not vote yes because of the same reason. They're not a nonprofit organization. But at least their goal is to join with the school district and provide a place for the kids to go, as well as giving them some free passes. And it's a downtown thing. It's going to draw people to downtown. However, I will vote no on that for the same reason. That's not what the ARPA money was intended for.
This might be another optics thing, but they only got $1 million when the IronPigs got the full 1.5. And I know at one point, it was discussed that, maybe these are just the figures that they're asking for and they might not get those.
That is absolutely correct. Yeah, just because they're asking for that doesn't mean they're going to get that. There are council members, without using names, that have sort of changed their mind with that amount, number one. And number two, since the county has given them, I believe, an additional $3 million, I believe that the votes may not go as what they were originally, put it that way.
Do you anticipate that they'll pass?
I'll be totally honest with you, at this point in time, no.
Is there anything else as far as the ARPA funding goes that you'd like to mention or feel we need to touch on?
I think we have to be very careful about who we give it to as far as nonprofits, because it cannot be used for wages and things like that. And initially, people were going to have to produce documentation to show accountability for each time that they spend. I'm not so sure that's part of the rules anymore.
How do you think that's going to change now that the rules have kind of already been broken?
Well, my concern is, this is federal money. So if there's, people talk about Mr. Pawlowski not following the rules. Well, we're not following the rules either, So if this ends up in a federal investigation, there'll be no one to blame but ourselves.
The rules, what do you mean by that?
Our initial determinations that we were going to do with the process, having them to disclose any other money they may be getting other than ARPA money, where, in other words, James's, garage, might have got $3 million from the state, whereas Joe's garage didn't get anything. So we wanted to make sure that it was done fairly and equally, and I don't think that's happened.
Do you think we still have time to rectify that?
Yeah, that'll depend on October 19th.
In other city council news, Police Chief Charlie Roca proposed submitting for 2 grants, one which is for $10 million that would go towards installation and use of some new technology that would pinpoint gunshots in the city and allow for better response time. As described by Allentown Police Chief Roca, the tech would record and analyze sounds to be determined if it's a gunshot or not. But that raises the question, what else is being recorded? I asked councilmember Zucal about that technology. There were also some grants that were it sounds like the city's going to be applying for. One in particular really stuck out. It was for some new police technology.
Yes, there's a $10 million grant from the feds, again, that came to the state. And some of that money will go toward, police overtime, camera updates. I believe it was 150 cameras, if I recall correctly, and not new, but new and improved, I should say, what they call gunshot location or something to that effect. Basically, in other words, if there's a shot fired outside of your house, they're able to detect within a certain parameter where that shot came from. And therefore, and according to the chief, that technology would also be in the cars so that the police officers could get that much sooner than if someone called in, and until the call's made until it's dispatched, that's 2-3 minutes, and a lot can happen in 2-3 minutes.
Well, I'd be curious to know about the recording. I know it's going to be recording these sounds. Are you aware if there's going to be anything else that's going to be recording?
Pick up the radio waves I assume radio waves or frequencies of some kind, and it breaks it down. Like, for instance, it's supposedly, again, I'm not the expert, but supposedly it's able to determine between a backfire, fireworks, or an actual shot.
Anytime there's a recording of anything involved, people right away start thinking about their privacy. Is that being, taken into consideration here? Are other things being recorded, consistently?
That's not something I actually can answer. I think someone did bring that up about privacy, and I don't recall what the actual answer to that was. I guess, in a sense, it would be no different than if you called into the comm center now stating the same thing occurred. Mm-hmm. So again, like I said, I'm not an expert on that, but as far as privacy, right. I mean, you don't have to give your name now when you call in. So actually, from what I gathered, it was only going to register where the shot was, fired from, and then, police officers could corral that area and possibly locate a suspect.
That's more what I'm thinking. In that area where the new technology is that device recording? Are people going to have to worry about their voices being recorded on this device?
No. I don't think it even comes close to that kind of technology.
Interesting.
It's specifically gunshot intended. Okay. And I guess they've used it, or are using it, I should say, in several other states. So we're just really getting the money for it now to be able to get it. So, but it's been around a while.
We've had a rash of gun violence and gun-related issues here in the city. I think we can all agree that there's no one piece of technology or anything that fixes everything.
Well, I believe that the chief mentioned also that one of his plans is to not necessarily cooperate, but coordinate with outside agencies such as the FBI, the state police. Years ago, the state police would come into the city, and it was called trigger lock. And they would come in on Friday and Saturday nights from say like 7 to 3 in the morning, and they would ride with our guys or our guys with them, and they would patrol the streets. And that was a time, like back in 1990, I believe it was 98, when we had a rash, and I think it was like 20-some homicides. And if it wouldn't have been for that activity, of us using that activity, I think it would have been a lot higher.
That's going to do it for this episode of The Follow-Up Question. This meeting was only 45 minutes long. The next one is scheduled for Wednesday the 19th at 6:30. And don't worry, we'll be watching so you don't have to. I'm Ben Stemrick. Thanks for paying attention.